Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgy kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. Check us out on Patreon, and a big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. The link to that is in the description, as well as our link to our good friends at Dice Legion. Use the promo code Sinister to get 10% off all of your purchases. Without further ado, we're going to jump into this week's video. We're going to finish off the playtest 7 and talk about the Wizard. The Wizard, the iconic class that has defined D&D as far as spellcasting is concerned for such a long time. They've been wildly popular since Jump Street, and they've always had a very strong place in every group and adventure. There's not so much that really got a huge change. A lot of the things that got changed weren't that dynamic. Sometimes it was just closing something that was really abusable or really overpowered, but a lot of it is pretty lackluster. It's nothing super changing or super dynamic. So I'm going to cover some of them really quickly, and then I'm just going to go into a little bit more of an idea about some of the things that I think the Wizard is doing, and more of a theory behind what the Wizard will be becoming. So a few of the changes had to do with the spell book. They kind of simplified and made it easier to replace your own spell book or make a copy of it, which can be useful, but you need a very dastardly DM to kind of have that circumstance where someone would steal your spell book or destroy it. I think it's cool. I think this feature a lot of the times just goes under the radar and nobody really concerns themselves about the Wizard spell book and kind of leaves it alone. But it's a great idea that now you have a reason to back it up, and maybe that gives DMs a reason to attempt to steal it. If you're fighting bandits or something, they know what a spellbook is. They can see you casting and using it. So maybe them stealing it from you might be a very opportunistic circumstance that could be very strongly in their benefit, because now you can negotiate their freedom, Outside of that, memorize spell is an interesting one where you can just memorize a spell that wasn't prepared as long as that spell was in your spell book. So you get one free additional prepared spell. Again, you're a wizard. You kind of pick and choose your spells each day. At least you have that opportunity to. So maybe this is beneficial to you. Maybe it isn't. Sometimes too many options is very, very limiting, and it creates too many circumstances where you think too much about something and it kind of puts you in a stalemate as to what to do. Maybe if you're one of those people that plays the Wizard regularly and need that extra spell, or really, really analyze where you're going and what adventures are above and in front of you, maybe this might be more beneficial to you. Outside of that, spell mastery has changed. Previously, you could pick any spell of first or second level that you can cast at will. This apparently became abusable when people picked shield, and then every reaction just used shield. It's powerful, yeah, absolutely. It's also an 18th level ability, so I really don't see that being too much of an issue. Keep in mind, casting spells, you can cast one spell per turn. In theory, I think you might be able to get some wiggle room about casting a spell and still being able to use a reaction, because it's not your turn, but it really kind of becomes one of those circumstances where if a DM wanted to be hard enough on you or felt that was being abusive, then putting that kind of restriction on it is very easily made, and can really fix that problem a lot of the times. But now you can only cast a spell that has an action, as opposed to a bonus action or a reaction. So Misty Step, gone. But again, what are you casting at first and second level? And at 18th level, what are you casting that's really beneficial besides those? I think they just kind of trash this ability. I think they'll walk the dog back on this and leave it the way it was. Because it ruins an 18th level ability. Yeah, it can be overpowered, but there's only one or two things that could really use it. Like, say you took Absorb Elements and Shield, that's it, and those were your spells, you can't do that because you need a level 1 and a level 2 spell, but using any one of those anytime you took damage isn't really that big of an issue because you're 18th level. You'll be using them as reactions anyway, and you have those level 1 spell slots to burn, which really don't do anything effectively damage-wise, and unless you're using Charm Person or things like that, it's really not going to be used in any other way, shape, or form. So you really have to go through your spells diligently to make a good use out of this ability at 18th level. And signature spell is kind of the same. You really only get one free casting of a 3rd level spell, so most people will probably pick Fireball or something like that and just use it to clear a low level room or just a whole bunch of adds or something, or tinier mobs that you're not really too concerned about. But yeah, the base wizard really didn't change that much, and these changes aren't really dynamic outside of spell mastery kind of getting brought down to a lower peg. The Abjuration Wizard changed a little bit. Again, not huge dynamic changes. Some of them are just like a little bit of quality of life. Some of them, one of them is actually pretty good. First and foremost, when you pick this as your school of wizardry, you get Abjuration Savant, which lets you pick 2 Abjuration spells from your wizard spell list, but they can be of a level no higher than 2, and you can put them in your spell book for free. And then whenever you gain a new spell slot level in this class, you can add an Abjuration spell for free from the wizard spell list into the book. This is great. This is in all the other subclasses that the wizard has, which is cool because it makes you, A, pick up these spells for free, and it helps you cultivate an army of spells from that particular school that work really well with your character. And really behind the theme of it, kind of like looping it all together, which is a nice change. And it really encourages you to use more Abjuration spells, which is nice. As a school of Abjuration Wizard, it benefits you to do that, or at least to look like that for role-playing purposes. Arcane Ward changed a little bit. Previously, it was whenever you cast an Abjuration spell, you got this little shield. Now you can also just cast a spell slot without actually casting a spell and use that to rejuvenate the shield whenever you feel like. Then further down you get Spellbreaker. This improved the other ability, which was improved Abjuration. This, you have Dispel Magic always prepared, and you can cast it as a bonus action, which is actually really, really good, especially for combat. And you can add your proficiency bonus to its ability check. Outside of that, everything else is exactly the same. There's nothing huge, nothing dynamically changing about this. It's not something that's going to change your whole purpose for picking other schools and jump right to this one. It's a good school on its own. Again, wizards are based around what spells you select and what spells you inscribe, but for their subclasses, they don't really make such a dynamic change unless it's like 1 or 2 abilities that are really strong. The Divination Wizard, one of the favorites because important, really didn't change much. One of the things you do is you now get that ability where you get a divination spell whenever you gain a new spell slot level in this class, and you get 2 free divination spells when you pick this subclass at 3rd level. Outside of that, your level 10 feature, as opposed to just letting you see invisibility, you now cast the spell See Invisibility. Outside of that, no changes. But again, this is kind of really what it just feels like. The Invocation Wizard, again, follows suit with the same kind of idea. Now you get 2 evocation spells as soon as you jump into the subclass, and you gain a free evocation spell into your book whenever you gain a new spell slot level in this class. They did switch around Sculpt Spells and Potent Cantrip. Potent Cantrip, obviously, if you miss with a cantrip or it succeeds on a saving throw of the enemy, it takes half damage, which is great super early on because you rely on those cantrips a lot, especially early level. And Sculpt Spell really gains a bigger benefit when you're at higher level because you have more spells that hit an AoE that would really fit that kind of line. Outside of that, everything else is kind of the same, which is really unexciting, but it does put a better ability at an earlier level, so you do get the most usage out of it. But outside of that, again, like the rest of the wizard, it's really just nothing dynamic or exciting that really changes your opinion. The Illusionist Wizard did actually get something that I'm actually really, really excited about. But again, you get that 2 illusion spells right when you jump into the subclass, and you get a free illusion spell into your spellbook whenever you gain a new spell slot level in this class. Now, you do get malleable illusions at 6th level, so it's a little further, But you could change the illusion as a bonus action as opposed to an action, meaning you can create an illusion of whatever you wanted and then use some of your other actions to do things like minor illusion or whatever else is going on, or something to attack, to sway, to augment what's going on, and still have that illusion going and be able to change it to make it look like it's moving, walking, or whatever it is in your incredibly creative mind. Moving it to a bonus action frees up your actions and your availability to really be very creative. The Illusionist Wizard has such a high creative thinking necessity that you need to be able to hit to make this effective. That being said, this does now almost double that because you can now do these illusions and make them more impressive and involved and still have your actions to compound whatever it is you're trying to do as well. So it does give you a big window of opportunity, but you really need to work on illusions with your DM, talking about it, figuring out a way to make them viable and how they like to run it, so it's not just a complete waste, because this is a subclass that's very dependent on that good relationship with illusions. The other thing is they cleared up the wording for illusory reality, which is you could make an illusion and have part of it be real. You cannot use that real part to do any damage or make any conditions or circumstances as a result of that realistic circumstance, which is all right. Again, it's something that you have to be really creative to use. You have to be really creative to use effectively, and you need a DM that works really well with you, which is one of the reasons why you very rarely see illusionist wizards. So the wizard is more so getting to be this, just more in line with everything else. No more early subclass abilities. Everybody gets them at level 3 now. Now you're getting the final subclass ability at level 14, which I think is good because, there's a lot of strong abilities you never get to see. And there's a lot of campaigns that go up to 15 that you will at least have an opportunity to see them, which I like because not only does it promote singular class progression, which is something I really like, but it gives you an option as opposed to needing to be a multi-class or needing to be a certain type of character that you jump around and never get to see these abilities, because it's easier when those abilities are always out of reach. It's not so easy when you can actually obtain them. So I think it's cool to see them. I like some of these abilities. And I think now that they're at a lower level as a whole, you're going to see them more often, which is, interesting. I think as whole, the unity of what the wizard is going to be going forward I think they're going to try and encourage more dynamic play between the subclasses of the wizard, because a lot of the times you play a wizard and you grab a whole bunch of very useful spells and you kind of just use those no matter what your subclass is, so the options of really feeling like you're a different subclass is very few and far between. Obviously a necromancer wizard plays significantly different than a divination wizard, but a divination wizard and an evocation wizard and an illusionist, a war magic, a conjuration, an evocation, even abjuration, a lot of those play very similarly. You put a transmutation wizard and an abjuration wizard in the same room fighting enemies that aren't casters, and you're going to get very similar play style out of them both. And I think they're going to try and incorporate a more of a push to separate those by forcing you to gain all these spells that fit along those lines and try and cultivate you into using them more often, which is something I like. I like that themology behind it. I like being an evocation wizard and picking all evocation spells. Though there's a lot that do the same thing, it feels more correct than doing so if you're not. And I think themes and stories behind subclasses are coming more prevalent. And I think that's kind of what they're going to inch towards doing. I think it's going to be the same with all the subclasses across the board. But with huge amounts of subclasses like the wizard, I think they're going to more finite, refine, and give you subtle nuances to kind of pick those classes and pick those subclasses and use those spells in accordance to it, as opposed to just picking these subclasses and maybe getting one ability that you can use regularly. Our final thoughts. The new playtest 7 Wizard is not a huge change from the regular Wizard, just some of the things rearranged, but a lot of the times those rearrangements were in our benefit, and now we get some abilities that make more sense at earlier levels. But in the end, it's not a huge change. It's nothing dynamic. It's nothing that's going to make you go, wow, I need to play a wizard right now. But some of the things are quality of life. Some of them are not really huge buffs or nerfs either way. So a lot of it's just flavor or taking it as you leave it. That being said, we're going to bring this video to a close. It might be a little shorter than the other ones, and I do apologize for that. But if you've made it this far, definitely like and subscribe. Check us out on Patreon. The link for Patreon is in the description. Thank you very much to our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And thank you to our good friends at Dice Legion. The promo code Sinister will give you 10% off all of your purchases, and that link is in the description as well. And thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.